How parents help teens navigate adolescence. How do parents help their children survive the adolescent years? Effective parenting of adolescents requires a balance between maintaining some oversight and control while encouraging independence and responsibility in preparation for adulthood. Although some parents may disengage when their children become teenagers, the evidence is that effective parents continue to play an important role in helping their youth successfully navigate the hazards of adolescence. The research into parenting and adolescent well-being has uncovered certain parenting processes that evidently work, which will be covered here. Diana Baumrind, 1991-2005, was one of the first researchers to examine links between the quality of child rearing and adolescent competence using longitudinal data. She recognized that in early adolescence, firm guidance and sustained emotional support are important qualities in parents. However, adolescents differentiate between legitimate and illegitimate authority and seek greater control over decisions that affect them. Privacy and secrecy issues also begin to surface. Baumrind found that parents who were authoritative and used appropriate control techniques, exerting reasonable control, being warm and supportive, communicating openly, and encouraging independence had children who had the highest levels of competence, were socially responsible, and had good relationships with their parents. Subsequent studies on much larger samples confirmed that parents with an authoritative style of child rearing have adolescents who are better adjusted in terms of academic achievement and psychosocial development. Their teens also exhibit fewer behavior problems, including smoking and mental health problems, than others whose parents' child rearing style is different. For example, Muse, Isa, Slater, and Lee, 2004, Steinberg and Morris, 2001. This relation held across ethnic groups and socioeconomic status levels, although authoritative parenting was reported less frequently in ethnic minorities and poor families. Knight, Verdon, and Rusa, 1994, Mason, Corse, Gonzalez, and Hiriga, 1996. The association is also present in juvenile delinquents. Authoritative parenting was associated with relatively more psychosocial maturity, greater academic competence, and less internalizing and externalizing problems than juveniles with other types of parents. Steinberg, Blatt E. Sengert, and Kaufman, 2006. What are the ingredients or parenting skills involved in authoritative parenting at this age? 5 key qualities of effective parent-child relationships with teenagers include the following: staying connected via warm, positive relationships, maintaining open communications, supporting autonomy development, monitoring and being knowledgeable using appropriate control techniques. Staying connected via positive, warm relationships, a warm, loving, and positive relationship, sometimes called involved, accepting, supportive, close, connected, and caring relationships, is the single most important quality of the parent-teen relationship. Luther and Latendress, 2005, Roth and Brooks Gunn, 2000. This characteristic is commonly found when investigators examine why some teens avoid succumbing to problems. For example, positive relationships are associated with various adolescent behaviors, including better educational outcomes, fewer mental health problems, delayed onset of sexual activity, fewer sexual partners, and increased likelihood of using contraceptives. McNeely et al., 2002, Miller, Benson, and Galbraith, 2001, Resnick et al., 1997. Conversely, a lack of closeness increases the influence of peers on teens' sexual activity and externalizing behavior problems. Gerard, Krishnakima, and Buller, 2006, Miller et al., 2001. Even controlling for other influences, such as deviant peer associations, poor quality parent-teen relationships still predicted more externalizing behavior in teens and unnecessary increased parental unhappiness. Buller, 2006. Open communication. Having a good relationship facilitates a second key ingredient of effective parenting: open communication. Open communication means that both the parent and the child are comfortable in communicating their views to each other about topics such as school grades, money, household rules, and peers. McElhaney and Allen, 2001. Maintaining good communications during adolescence is a challenge because teenagers increasingly believe that they should not disclose to their parents information from certain domains, such as dating or substance use. Smetana, Metzger, Jetman, and Campion Barr, 2006. Teenagers are more likely to disclose to mothers than to fathers, and girls are more likely to confide than boys. Talking about sex with adolescents provides a great example of the awkwardness of this developmental stage. Parents recognize it is important to prepare their teens to deal with sex, but they often have reservations about talking about the topic, as do their teens with them. Parents find talking to their children about sex threatening and challenging due to embarrassment, difficulty in explaining, fear about knowing the correct answers to questions, or an inability to find the right moment for the talk. Jacked, Dittus and Gordon, 2000, Morris, Grolnick, and Friendly, 2013. In many cases, the talk occurs after daughters have initiated sex, or the mother is concerned about her daughter's behavior. Averett and Estelle, 2013. However awkward, mothers who clearly expressed their disapproval of teen sexual activity had daughters who engaged in later sexual initiation. McNeely et al. 2002. Despite the difficulty in communication, the importance of open and frequent discussions can be paramount for youth safety. Parents who talked with their teens more frequently about safe driving had children with more positive attitudes toward driving safety. Yang, Campo et al. 2013. Box 10.6 Tips for talking with teens. Many parents find it difficult to talk with their children about sensitive topics such as sex, alcohol, and drugs and violence. The Office of Adolescent Health, part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, has some tips. http://www.hhs.gov/resources-and-publications/info/parents. The tips for maintaining open communication include the following: choose a good moment. Car rides can provide a good opportunity. Be a good listener. Accept the teen's feelings. Be positive, give praise. Discuss calmly and honestly. Negotiate, respect the teen's need for autonomy and privacy. Don't lecture, nag, or use guilt. It doesn't work. Use humor. Lighten it up. Sometimes the teen is not in the mood to talk. Accept that. Try again later. Another important topic that merits open communication concerns alcohol and drugs. The messages parents give about the topic show the variability in parental communication practices. For instance, in a study assessing adolescents' perceptions of their parents' messages about substance use, the most common parental messages were to tell the child to use his or her own judgment, 79%, or to inform the youth about the dangers of substances, 42%. Less common was providing indirect messages that hinted about parental expectations or wishes, 29%. About 1/5 of parents took a hard line and said they would not tolerate it, 22.6%. or would threaten punishment, 18%. According to the students, only a small percentage of parents, 8.8%, never brought up the topic. Miller Day, 2008. One way to maintain relationships and communication is by having family meals. Fees, 2006. In the National Survey of Children's Health from 2007, almost 92,000 parents or guardians were interviewed. http://www.cdc.gov/nch/slates/n.sch/207NSCH. 69% of families with children 12 to 18 years of age shared a meal on 4 or more days each week, and 33% of teens' families shared daily meals. Rates did not differ greatly between ethnic groups and social classes, typically lasting about 20 minutes. Dinner time allows parents to connect with their children, address problems, and make plans. Adolescents report that about 50% of mealtime, 3 hours per week, is spent talking to parents. Offer, 2013. That family time around the dinner table, at least in well-functioning families, provides an opportunity for open communication, emotional support, and feelings of respect, all qualities that promote teen well-being. Fees, Foley, and Spagnola, 2006. Frequency of family meals with adolescents is inversely related to early sexual activity, substance use, poor school performance, and depression. Fulkerson et al. 2006. Monitoring knowledge. Having a good relationship and good communication with a teenager is important but not enough. Parents need to continue to monitor their teenagers, particularly in the early teenage years. This monitoring or supervision from a distance requires knowledge what the teen is doing, with whom, and when. However, that knowledge can only be acquired from parent-child involvement and communication. A teenager needs to disclose information in order for the parent to monitor and make judgments about the child's activities and friends. Parental monitoring of youth is associated with fewer problems in adolescence. For some variables, such as school misconduct and alcohol use, a linear relationship has been found. The more monitoring knowledge the parent has, the better the child behaves. But for other variables, there appears to be a curvilinear relation between monitoring knowledge and its effectiveness. This effect was found in the relation between behavioral supervision of grades and grade point average GPA. Moderate levels of supervision facilitated the highest PAR in adolescents, whereas too little or too much was associated with lower GPAs. Kodak, Fine, and Sinclair, 1995. These data indicate that problems can emerge when a parent engages in too much monitoring. The issue of when monitoring goes too far is discussed in Box 10.7. Box 10.7 My mother, the narc. Monitoring knowledge is a good thing, but when does monitoring a teenager go too far? What if a parent suspects his or her teenager of doing drugs or driving too fast or drinking and driving? In the old days, a parent might rifle through the child's drawers or clothes, looking for evidence. Today, many parents use home drug testing kits and GPS devices to monitor their teen's behavior. For only $15 to $25, a parent can purchase a home drug testing kit. Planting a GPS device in a car is a bit more expensive, $139 to $280, but provides highly accurate information about their teen's driving characteristics, accelerations and speed, and whereabouts. The dilemma is, should a parent be trusting or monitoring? A parent should not be naive about common adolescent temptations, but on the other hand, if a parent does not trust or respect the adolescent, but instead treats him or her like a potential criminal, the teen is likely to be resentful, develop a hostile relationship with the parent, and perhaps act out. Appropriate limits. The essence of the teenage years involves teens developing their own identity, and some independence from parents. Parents need to engage in autonomy granting by respecting their child's emerging individuality, allowing the teen some privacy, encouraging their children to think independently and express their views, and then being receptive to those statements and tolerating differences. Barber, Zaya, Olson, McNeely, and Bose, 2012, Kunz and Greich, 2013. Although most studies find that supporting a teen's autonomy is associated with better quality parent-child relationships and child well-being. Smetana, Campion-Barr et al., 2006, there are at least two qualifications to that. First, in early and middle adolescence but not in late adolescence, parental involvement in decision-making is linked to better child adjustment. Smetana, Campion-Barr, and Daddis, 2004. Second, in high-risk families, low income and living in a dangerous neighborhood, giving the youth full autonomy is not necessarily a good thing. McElhaney and Allen, 2001. Appropriate control during adolescence consists of providing support and allowing for the development of autonomy, while sometimes setting limits. This means providing consistent boundaries for behavior and using age-appropriate discipline. Appropriate disciplining may take the form of teaching the adolescent to assume the natural consequences of behavior. For example, they pay for the speeding ticket. Limit setting, for example, early curfew in response to staying out too late, and removal of privileges, for example car use. These kinds of actions reflect behavioral control, in contrast to psychological control. Psychological control is an ineffective practice that consists of intrusive and manipulative verbalizations designed to change how the teen is thinking about things or blaming the child for other family members' problems. A full overview of ineffective disciplinary practices includes inconsistent discipline, corporal punishment, and psychological control. Each practice has been associated with teen problems. For example, psychological control, for example, such as using guilt, shaming, or threatening to withdraw love, has been linked to internalizing, for example, depression, and externalizing, for example, delinquency problems. In contrast to positive outcomes associated with behavioral control, such as increased social initiative and fewer externalizing problems. Barber, Stolz, and Olson, 2005, Hove et al., 2009. A subtle distinction in rearing an adolescent concerns the difference between psychological control and a failure to grant autonomy. Although some parents may be reluctant to grant autonomy, perhaps due to fears about the youth's well-being, Their behavior reflects a different goal than the parents who use psychological control. Parents who use psychological control wield their authority to put down a child, or to maintain power over the child. Not surprisingly, a study that separated out this difference found that psychological control was linked to teen depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem. These results provide a sharp contrast to those in which parents grant autonomy to their teens. Silk, Morris, Kanaya, and Steinberg, 2003. Examples of psychological control and autonomy granting can be found in Table 10.2. Table 10.2 Examples of items that differentiate psychological control from autonomy granting. Psychological control. When I get a poor grade, my parents make me feel guilty. My parents tell me their ideas are correct and I should not correct them. My parents answer my arguments with something like, "You'll know better when you grow up." My parents say that I should give in on arguments rather than make people angry. Source: Silk et al., 2003. Autonomy granting. When I get a good grade, my parents give me more freedom to make my own decisions. My parents emphasize that it is important to get my ideas across even if others do not like it. My parents say that you should always look at both sides of the issue. My parents emphasize that every member of the family should have some say in family decisions. It may sound unusual, but some parents of teenagers continue to use corporal punishment with adolescents. This practice, as when used with younger children, is linked to internalizing and externalizing problems in teens. For example, Turner and Mueller, 2004. Other parents use frequent criticism of their teenagers. Criticizing is problematic because it undermines a close relationship and has been associated with adolescent problems, including eating disorders. Luther and Latendress, 2005. Alternative strategies to managing adolescents, such as those discussed above, are likely to be much more effective in promoting positive and healthy behavior. Other ways parents influence their teenagers. Several other parental practices have been linked to positive development. As mentioned above, mothers who disapproved strongly of teen sexual activity had daughters, but not sons, who engaged in later sexual initiation. McNeely et al., 2002. Strict discipline has also been found to be associated with delayed sex initiation. Forst and Haas, 2002. Parents influence their teens in other ways as well. They serve as role models. Parents' own substance use is a key predictor of their children's use of cigarettes. For example, Skal, Ireland, and Borowski, 2003. They also model eating practices, physical activity, dieting, and body esteem. Gaterio, Frisane, and Anderson Phi, 2014. Parents who provide encouragement for a healthful diet, control the food that is in the home, and give information about nutrition have children with better eating practices. Patrick and Nicholas, 2005. By modeling charitable giving and volunteering, parents are more likely to have children who follow suit. Tony Wilhelm, Estelle, and Perdue, 2014. Parents also have an indirect influence by the friends they keep, the quality of relationships, the rules they create, and the activities they engage in. For example, parents influence their children's weight through rules concerning television viewing and other electronic media, physical activity, and consumerism. Krishnamurthy, Hart, and Jalalian, 2006. Limits of parental influence on teens. Parental behavior and parent-child relationships have a strong influence on teen behavior. However, all parenting does not affect children in the same way or to the same extent. Examples to support that point come from the work in gene-environment research. Just as some children may be more vulnerable to adverse environmental experiences than others, as J. Belsky and Michael Plewis, 2009, capture in their differential susceptibility framework, it may also be the case that some children benefit more from positive environments and positive parenting. Plewis and Belsky, 2013. An illustration to support this vantage susceptibility hypothesis can be found in a study of parenting, genes, and youth aged 9 to 15 years. Hankin and colleagues, 2011, found that youth who had a particular variant of a serotonin transporter gene, 5-HTTLPR short allele, and experienced positive supportive parenting were more likely to have positive affect than other children. Another limitation of parental influence is due to the fact that parents are just one of several potential influences. Particular characteristics of the adolescent, that is, temperament, intelligence, behavior, and other individuals, for example, peers, teachers, coaches, mentors, religious leaders, as well as the context, neighborhood, school, also influence the teen's behavior and well-being. Zukorskine, 2014. For example, teen externalizing behavior problems often elicit parental negativity rather than cause it. An example of child effects on parenting, Marceau et al. 2013. With regard to sexual activity, the adolescent's values, intentions, self-restraint, alcohol-drug use, and depression, as well as whether he or she is involved in a steady dating relationship, are all variables that can affect whether parents influence the teen's sexual activity. Miller et al. 2001. Adolescent behavior is determined not just by the self, as self-determination theory posits, but the many different agents, developmental assets, and protective factors and risks, as well as the ecological model reminds us. For example, Joe et al. 2012. Problematic adolescent behavior could emerge from such sources as genetic susceptibility, temperamental predispositions, negative incidents, for example, trauma or some failure, or exposure to certain experiences. For example, violence on television, films, and video games contribute to teen violence, at least with some individuals. Hussman and Taylor, 2006. Nevertheless, parents are the preeminent guides of their adolescents through these potentially turbulent years. Holden, 2010. Researchers have identified two effective ways that parents guide teens: by encouraging and by supporting involvement in extracurricular activities. These actions are considered protective factors because they decrease the likelihood of risky behavior. Extracurricular activities have also been found to protect adolescents against delinquency, drug use, and early sexual activity. For example, Holden and Williamson, 2014. Pierce and Haney, 2004.